Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us today on Health and Wellness 360 with tfal&chi. You probably noticed we're not in the same room. Hey,
Right.
Chi, miss
Hey,
you.
hi, honey. Miss you too.
Thank you so much for joining us today, this Saturday morning, this busy holiday season, spending your time with us. Please, please, please let us know where you're joining us from. Type in the chat, let us know where you're joining us from this Saturday. And before we get started, I just would like to introduce ourselves. Again, for those of you who followed us and watched us, you know we're always sitting right next to each other, holding each other, getting this going. But we're doing this in two separate areas today, but still have, thank you, Dallas, in the house. Thank you for joining us. So before we get started, we'll introduce ourselves. My name is tfal. I am an infectious disease physician. I'm a professor of medicine. I am an author, a podcaster, and a wellness coach, and the other half of tfal&chi. And I'm joined by my amazing husband, Chi, who will introduce himself.
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you for being here again and again and again, like you always are. And for those who it's your first time, welcome, welcome. Keep chiming in there where you are calling or dialing in from. We appreciate all of you. I am Chi, and the other half of Tfal, my beautiful wife, and I'm a health and wellness expert. And my focus is mental health, nutrition, as well as physical fitness. So we're looking forward to having an amazing show today. We're going to be talking about stress management, especially at this time of the year where we know there's so many stressors out there. How do we mitigate them? What do we do about them? How can we protect ourselves, our families, and our loved ones? So it's going to be a fun show today. It's good. 30 minutes runs by so fast. So before we go ahead, why don't we ask you, what at this time of the year, what are the things that stress you out the most? What stresses you out the most at this time of the year? Why don't you try and put that into the comment box there so we can see what you deal with, especially at this time of the year. And as you're doing that, Tfal, I'm going to ask you this question, all right? So, are you ready for it?
Yes.
Let's do this then. So, as you know, as a doctor, and I want to ask you, metabolically, physically, emotionally, and all that, what do you see? What happens to the body when the body is in a stress mode for extended periods of time? Because we know that some level of stress can be good because that's our body responding to kind of stimulate something. But when we're in this long and stressed period of time, can you share with us and the audience what happens to the body physically and all that?
Wow. Thank you so much, Chi, for that question. And please type in the chat what stresses you out. We'll talk about that. Thank you. And you brought it up right off the bat that stress is part of our normal body's reaction to stimuli, and that it's set there to protect us, right? From danger. It tells you when to run, when to fight, when to move away. But when it's gone on prolonged. So when our body perceives stress, what happens is there's a part of our brain called the hypothalamus that sends signals to our adrenal glands and secretes adrenaline and cortisol. And you and I have talked about these hormones, right, during our prior shows. And both of those hormones are there to, like, the increased adrenaline gets you the rush, right? It gets your heart rate going, it gets your blood pressure up, it gets your energy levels up. That's what primes you to run from stress, right? Or whatever that danger is. And cortisol, what cortisol does is it pushes out glucose into your bloodstream, to your brain, because you have to do a lot of thinking and all that. And usually the regular stress is supposed to be short-lived. When chronic stress goes on, think about it, that means your heart rate is up all the time, your blood pressure about your cortisol is up. That causes a lot of symptoms, a lot of symptoms. So anywhere from just people have headaches, back pain, chest pain, chest tightness. Our skin is such a big organ. So people have like skin issues, they have GI, digestive issues. But in addition to those things, and then they have things like high blood pressure. So chronic stress has been linked to high blood pressure, heart disease, strokes. And I know you have a background in mental health. So what are some of those things?
I was going to ask you that. So You mentioned some of the factors we see there. Things like obesity are also a huge piece, because you talked about cortisol. Obesity is another huge piece when we're in a long state of stress. So it could happen in so many different ways. You could either lose an unimaginable amount of weight, or you can gain an unimaginable amount of weight or lose them. So it's either go up or go down, and it could be drastic. It could take a long period of time. And that kind of stress, when it happens to you in that way, when you have lost a huge amount of weight or gained a massive amount of weight, it is so difficult to then begin to come back down and reduce that. So go ahead.
No,
Honey.
like you said, because those hormones are just primed and they're not regulated, because it's supposed to be a down regulation, and that's that. And my question to you was, I talked about physical things. What are some of the mental health things that you are aware of in terms of chronic stress?
Of course, and I know Kim mentioned family stresses, so we're going to come back to that in a minute. We saw that, but family issues are a big piece for you, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But in terms of other manifestations, our mood, the way we move, feel, and think, the way we think and the way we're around people, when we are stressed out, it manifests in the way with actually your face. You won't be able to tell, but others can tell. The way we begin to have, certain kind of mood changes, and which sometimes you may not realize, but other people see it in you. And that's why it's very important that if you begin to realize any kind of stress or changes in your mood, it's very important to seek out the help of a professional to figure out exactly what's going on. Realize what the triggers are. So if you realize what the triggers are, we talk about this tfal, about you either remove the source. If you can't, you remove yourself. If you can't remove yourself, then you learn how to manage it. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. And I kept coming back to with your extensive background in psychotherapy and mental health, the impact of this stress on anxiety and depression. I know you have some numbers for us, which we'll talk about. Yes. But the point you brought around triggers and being able to identify those, and we think about stress, and Kim, I think, had said family issues. And many times when you look at the big causes of stress, a lot of times it's financial stuff, family stuff, work stuff, chronic things that, and you can't always remove yourself from those things, but learning how to manage, right? And even the people we love sometimes can be the people that cause the most stress, depending on what the dynamics are. So very excellent point you brought out there.
Yes, sure. And, just thinking the global, nationally, we live in the US, we know our callers are calling from different parts of the world, but in the US alone, there's about, $300 billion spent on managing mental health, 300 billion. And that's actually, those numbers are reported numbers. There's so many unreported numbers that we don't even, capture. So it's, being able to realize what the triggers are, being able to figure out a way to manage, remove yourself from those situations become very important. And also, as we talk about how to manage those areas, we're going to be talking about, is it what we're eating that is causing, because what we eat could actually impact that. Is it a lack of physical exercise? Is it our environment? So as we move along, Tifa, we're going to be talking about, as we planned, what are the how do we mitigate stress, and what we can do to feel better, move better, and be a better person overall in terms of how we appear to others. So.
Absolutely. And, in terms of when we think about why people present sometimes with the emergency, a lot of times we think about stress being all in how we feel and our mood and anxiety, but, the body it's all connected. We talk about the mind-body connection. And so when people have those real things where they have recurrent back pain, they have headaches, and the doctor says, we've checked you out, your scan, everything's good, or they have chest tightness and they say it's stress related. We see that in the hospital, people coming in over and over, and stress related illness, those numbers, where a lot of ER visits are from, things that are stress related. So it becomes really important to understand that stress can manifest in a variety of ways. And weight also you talked about with the cortisol and weight gain. Yes.
Exactly. And we haven't even talked about things, things like, allergies, and your body then refuses to fight allergies as well.
Your immune system.
Yeah, there's so many, your whole system shuts down. You're not able to fight off disease that you normally would be able to fight off because your immune system is depressed. There are issues with cardiovascular diseases as well, asthma, sleep apnea. There's so many things that can impact you in that space as well. So it's very, very important, critical to be able to understand your source of stress and begin to find ways to mitigate them so that you don't remain in that state for a long period of time.
Absolutely. And with that segue, we will be able to then move a little bit more towards managing, because what we've done in this very short time is talk a little bit about what, how common stress is, the cost of that financially, but also the cost on our health. And I think having people understand that, we say, I'm stressed, that it's not benign and it has effects on our immediate, our productivity, all of that stuff, but also on our long-term health with heart disease, obesity, strokes, depression, anxiety. So with that, we'll kind of try to segue into how do we manage stress, right? And so you already started off that discussion, Chi, earlier when you said know your triggers.
Correct.
Remove the source, remove yourself, or if you can't, because the stress could be your job and you need to keep your job, right? Your stress could be your family dynamics. How do you then manage how you respond within that setting if you're not able to do that? So I'll pass it over to you now, Chi, to start that discussion.
We're going to. So when we talk about stress, we always like to. We have almost like a framework when we talk about stress and how to manage it. So we'll talk about being able to eat well. We want to be able to move in terms of physical activity. We want to be able to think, have a purpose, and not just having a purpose, but having gratitude and something larger than yourself. And also, sleep plays an important role in that piece as well. So we're going to take them one by one.
We're going to go one by one.
So,
and I'm going to have you start, Chi. and Kim says, yeah, I'll read in my mail. But before we do that, we would like you to just share with us and share with other people who are watching with you. How do you manage your stress? It'll be important, when we go back and read the comments there to see how some of these strategies we talk about, maybe things you're already doing, because we all have ways in which we cope. When somebody says, go take a walk, whatever. So while I get Chi ready to start off with the first thing, just type in the chat, how do you manage your stress? How do you, when you know your stress, how do you relieve that? And so Chi, you start off with some of these strategies.
So even before we even jump into the strategy as well, right, I would just want to talk about how also life expectancy and also, income is a huge, issue there in terms of stress as well. And when you look at studies, it shows that, people in the top 1%, because of stress and all that, typically live 15 years longer than those at the bottom 1%. Mm-hmm. People in the top 1%, economy-wise, socioeconomic-wise, live a lot longer, 15 years to be approximate, 15 years longer than those in the bottom 1%.
Yeah.
So there's a big issue there with stress, life expectancy, and take-home income.
And since most, the vast majority of us won't be in the 1%, we have to figure out how we navigate life in where we are, because the issues of the 1%. So no, that's great. Thank you for sharing those numbers. And I saw breathing, walking, a couple of things. Yeah. So you want to start off with
for me, so in terms of eating well, what we eat, what we put in our bodies has a direct correlation to the way we move, think, and feel. What we put in our bodies. If you watch one of our shows on gut health, we have a bunch of shows out there. We did one especially on gut health and how what we eat releases hormones into our bodies that impact our mood. So if we are eating high nutritious foods in terms of we're getting a lot of protein, we're getting a lot of vegetables, we're getting complex carbohydrates, complex sugars that you get from fruits and nuts, that you get a lot of complex carbs in there as well, your mood would definitely be different. When you eat well, not just eating well, but also doing well with your water intake, what you drink. It's very important that you always make sure that water is a huge piece of what you do each and every day. If you're in your car, you have a bottle of water. If you're by your bedside, if you're wherever, you make sure water is that's right, you have yours. I love it. I love you, babe. Good job. So it's very important that what you eat, limit junk food. Over 70% of what you find in stores today have added sugars in it. Those added sugars have a huge negative impact on our lives and the way we move and feel and our mood as well. So reducing, if you can, eliminate, junk food, which is, the sodas and the fast foods, if you can. Not everyone can, but if you can, limit them if you can't. And, try to encourage a lot of vegetables into your diet, a lot of protein into your diet. Beans is a good one. And also, complex carbohydrates. And I'm going to ask you, Tifa, I've talked about the idea of eating well. Can you share in terms of movement, what you do and what we do as a couple
for stress management? And so that was a plug for our show on gut health that she just did. He summarized, a lot of work in like 2 minutes, literally the gut health, because so many things affect our mood. And, a lot of times, and one of the things we talked about, you and I, is also sometimes when we're stressed, people grab what they think are comfort foods, usually high sugars, processed foods. And those are the things that actually can make things worse. So how you manage the stress with what you eat. So thank you. And that's why we started with that. A lot of people don't think about that as such a big, so thank you for starting with that.
And thanks, Rumel Driver. She's, she drinks lots of water. Rumel Driver, she just said she drinks lots of water and she removes the stress from herself from the issue. So thank you for sharing that. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So the second one is for the EMTS is movement. So moving your body. A lot of people have put in there, taking a walk, taking a run, moving your body a lot helps, right? Moving. So you can remember when you're stressed, even as a kid, and someone says, drink some water to calm down, right? She just said water. Or they say, take a walk, take deep breaths, move yourself from the source. Believe it or not, just taking a walk and coming back to the situation sometimes helps. Move. Within the M also is being the movement, but not just of your body, moving in terms of how your mind and meditation. Being also being mindful, right? Is in that M. Being mindful of the situations you're in, practicing mindfulness. And that's a whole topic, meditation and mindfulness. Those are all the M's that allow you to center, allow you to think about certain things and are important. But movement in whatever form makes you feel good. Dancing, walking, running, music. Sometimes the single thing of you're dancing, you're listening to music, you're meditating, all of that at the same time. So it's really important to move your body. It releases endorphins. It makes you feel better and all of that, again, while you're drinking water and getting the kind of feel-good foods that make you feel well. So you're not medicating with alcohol or substances because that's only going to make you feel well. Alcohol is actually a depressant. So I think we'll get back to other things with the M, and I'm now going to throw it out back to you, Chi, because we've done E and M. About the T.
What about the T? So when we talk about the T, we're talking about your thought process. When you wake up every day, how you think about navigating your day, how you think about actually making your life and perhaps someone else's life better. So this was one of the attributes that were found in people who live in blue zones. We talked about blue zones. That's one of our, we did a lot of work around blue zones on one of our shows.
Yes.
So they had a purpose. They always thought about a purpose every day. They woke up, what am I going to do today to think about how to make my life better and perhaps the life of a fellow man better as well? That is so very key, because when we have a purpose, something we wake up every day to chase, to make better in the world, it indirectly makes us feel well and keeps us going and keeps you going and going and going. Studies have been done on people who were sick with cancer and different ailments, and those who had a purpose, those who had gratitude, typically they find that they actually live longer than those who didn't have that reserve. So it's very important. Tifa, you're going to say something. Go ahead, honey. You were going to say something.
No, I was just, did you see, I was like that because you said gratitude.
Yes.
That is a whole topic on its own. But when you said that, I just, because I'm not right next to you, so I couldn't like do that. I was
I'll take a thumbs up until you get home. So yeah, so it's one of those things, being able to make, just find something that drives you, your passion for something that, legacy leaving that leaves you, even when we're gone someday, somebody's like, you made my life better. Because of you, I could do this. So always trying to find ways to make the life of a fellow man better, or an organization, a society, as a whole. So as we're moving along, we have 10 minutes to go. So Tifa, why don't you talk about, the idea of sleep, which is a huge piece of how to manage stress.
That is great. And so with the sleep is such a stress reliever. And we actually did a show on sleep. With all the things that happen with our brain and our bodies when we get restful sleep, it is one of the top stress relievers is sleep. And that's why, sometimes when people are going through issues, we're like, you know what, you think you're trying to be productive, because one of the things, you're stressed, you think you're working through the stuff, you're actually less productive because you're not able to process. But when they say, you know what, get some sleep, tomorrow is another day, right? Hope, and then another day. So sleep restores us. It's where our bodies restore and renew and repair. So no matter what you're going through, being able to figure out sleep. And some people will say, well, when I'm stressed, I can't sleep. That's the last thing. I don't have time to sleep. I need to worry about stuff. But really prioritizing sleep and figuring out, with all the things we talked about, all the things you talked about, the nutrition, the movement, all of those things impact our sleep. Because we're not sleeping, our blood pressure is up, our heart rate is up. It impacts our weight. It impacts what we eat. Then we crave sugars, and then the cycle continues. So sleep is so important and a big part of managing stress.
Can you talk about some numbers there in terms of the recommendations of sleep? What are the recommended numbers there? Can you share that, please?
So the recommendation is for an adult between 7 to 9 hours of sleep, because that gets you 4 or 5 full cycles where you need to get into REM sleep, and you can actually get into those restoratives. Because when you're in light sleep, you don't get the blood pressure reducing benefit. You don't get the memory benefits, the concentration benefits, because those are all things that when we're stressed, we think, I don't have time to sleep, or we take on things like, stimulants or things that, seem like sugars that make us feel good temporarily, but those actually worsen the process. So sleep is really important. And with that, we always put time, right? Because time management is part of sometimes why we're stressed, right? Because we're stressed and we haven't managed time or prioritized things, then we cut into our sleep, it did all that. And so with the family issues and the things people talk about, part of that is also when you talk about thinking gratitude, but also letting people know. And I think that was the last part, letting people know what you need, and being, setting appropriate boundaries, because a lot of our stress sometimes is not having the boundaries.
Sure.
And then kind of running on both ends.
Yeah, and I was also going to share in terms of, especially at this time of the year.
Yes.
And oftentimes we feel we have to satisfy every single human we've talked to, right? But we've got to learn to do things that work best for you and your immediate family. I just trying to touch upon that a little bit. What is the most healthy thing for you and your loved ones? Should perhaps be that, an approach versus us trying to feel that at this time of the year, because spend becomes an issue, because we feel we have to make everyone whole, with gifts and things like that. So for those who are fortunate to do that, that's awesome. But it's very important to always stay within your limits and be content in that space and not worried about what the outside noise is. Can you talk a little bit about that before we go into,
Babe, you just when it talks about the boundaries are not just physical boundaries. The boundaries are in our mental space and who's around, but also that, the gratitude, and what's important is it the people. And if there are people in their lives that don't understand at this point, if you're not able to afford XYZ, it's time to kind of reorganize and prioritize that, right? Know your limits, because a lot of stress that people feel, I mean, if you're out, people are shopping, they already know the bills are coming next month.
Yep.
The kids open up those toys and throw them out after 2 seconds. So maybe it's time to have a culture of what's important. It's the people, right? The people in your lives, sending them a note. You can call them, let them know how you feel, and letting people know that I cannot afford XYZ. Because when we don't put those boundaries and when we don't say, I can't do this, we do it. And then we deal with the sleepless nights. Our blood pressure is up. So the time, the boundaries, not prioritizing what's important, practicing gratitude, all the things we talked about, stress management, are things we can do. Get up, take a walk, dance, meditate, pray, prayer, spiritual, whoever, however you believe, all of those things. And
That's right.
none of those things cost a dime. But you did bring up how to seek out professional help, right?
Exactly. It's very key, it's very, very important because oftentimes perhaps we don't know what that trigger is. And we keep, getting to that same point and going through that circle, almost like going through a wheel each time. But as soon as we figure out what that stress trigger is, we can figure out how to mitigate it. And if we can't, we'll move away from it. We just have to find a way to, remove ourselves from long stress and being in that state for a long period of time. So as we have about maybe four minutes to go here on this show runs by so fast. It's a 30-minute show. So we're going to talk about, what, make it make sense today. And that make it make sense today, honey, we're going back to about in terms of sleeping and getting those numbers in, making sure those numbers are critical. Not everyone is going to be able to make that 7 to 9 hour limit. Not everyone. We know that because people have different
Needs.
job situations and different needs, but those are recommended so that you can tell from yourself where you are. If you're just getting 4, you probably need to get a lot more. If you're getting more, awesome, if it fits into your lifestyle, because everyone's lifestyle is different. But if you can find a way to come to that point where you're getting between 7 and 9, that provides an optimal restorative and also restful time for you.
For you, absolutely. Thank you. So that was that make it make sense was the sleep, and for the for issues, just approaching stress, knowing that it is something we don't want to have constantly. Our lives are busy and everyone's stressed sometimes, but coping with those strategies, incorporating all the things we talked about, and understanding that your life has a purpose and being grateful. Being grateful for what you have and who is in your life, and prioritizing our time and putting in boundaries. Boundaries are to help us, not to shut people out. They're to make us better people. Because when we're working on on empty flames, we're not productive and we're stressed and tired. And the loved ones that we think we're stressed out trying to take care of don't even know that we're up at night stressed.
tfal, before we go here, can you share what's coming up January 8th?
Yes, yes, thank you for bringing that up. On January 8th, we're going to have a wellness workshop, tfal&chi wellness workshop to start off the new year. A reboot, re-energize, renew conference, a wellness workshop hosted by us virtually. I will put the details in the chat. It's also available on our website. It's a demonstrative 90-minute workshop to re-energize you and start the year off. There'll be hands-on demo led by Chi and I on getting your year started. We'll talk about nutrition, exercise, meal planning, and how to really make generational health start. So this is really important. Yes.
We're actually going to have a demo that day. We're going to have a live demo. We're going to make, live demo, make simple salads with the audience. So we encourage you to go to our website. We're going to put the link also in the post, chat today, so you can see the link and you can register for the event.
Yes.
It's going to be fun. When we're looking forward to it, because we know everyone, we always think about what are we going to do to be better in the coming year.
Yes.
We want to give you tips and things that are practical you can do. Yeah.
For you and your family.
You and your family.
So I think we're like at 30 seconds out. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, our producer Ellis, for putting all that information on the thing. We'll go through the chat and try and answer some questions. But regardless of whatever those triggers are, think about what she said. Remove the source, remove yourself, or find how to manage yourself within those sources while you're working on removing that. Seek professional help if you're overwhelmed, and look at simple tips, both the ones we shared and things that are shared by your fellow colleagues on the thread. And with that, we'll say thank you for joining tfal&chi. Can't wait to see you, Chi.
I miss you, babe.
See you soon.
See you soon. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you all for joining us. Thank you, Kim. Thank you for everyone for joining us.